Picture this: a father who spent years navigating the immigration system, mostly on paper, mailing his documents the same way he always has, sits down to prepare his next form for his daughter's petition. He has no idea that somewhere between now and that form's deadline, the mailbox option he's always relied on could simply stop existing for that specific form. Not today, not without warning. But the machinery for that shift just quietly started turning on August 11th, 2026, and almost nobody's talking about it yet. If you file anything with USCIS, green cards, work permits, family petitions, any of it, you need to understand what just changed, because this is the beginning of the end of paper filing as the default option in America's immigration system. Here's exactly what happened. On August 11th, 2026, the Department of Homeland Security's interim final rule on mandatory electronic filing took effect. What it does is simple to state and enormous in practice. USCIS now has the legal authority to require e-filing, not just offer it, for any immigration form that's already been available to file online for at least 180 days. Green cards, work authorization, family petitions, employment-based visas, the range here is genuinely wide. Now, before anyone panics and assumes their next filing gets bounced tomorrow, here's the part that actually matters most, and it's the detail almost every headline about this is skipping. This rule does not make any form online only today. It builds the framework. USCIS still has to notify the public on its website at least 60 days before any specific form actually becomes mandatory e-filing. So right now, this week, you can still file on paper for anything you could file on paper for last month. What's changed is that the ground underneath that option can now shift form by form with 60 days of warning each time, starting today. Here's the detail worth sitting with for a second, because it changes how you should actually think about your own upcoming filings. This isn't one switch flipping for the entire system at once. It's a slow, rolling changeover, one form at a time, and DHS hasn't published a master list of which forms are next. That means the safest assumption right now isn't, "This won't affect me for a while." It's, "I genuinely don't know which of my next few filings might be affected, so I should be ready either way." Quick pause here, because if you file anything with USCIS regularly, or you're helping a family member through this process, go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're going to track exactly which forms get switched over as USCIS starts rolling this out. So why is this happening at all? DHS says the goal is straightforward: move the system from a mostly paper process to a digital one, strengthen fraud detection, speed up processing, and eliminate the department's reliance on the Treasury's physical lockbox mail processing system entirely. There's a real cost and efficiency argument buried in here, too. Paper filing means physical mail rooms, manual data entry, and slower fraud screening. Digital filing means faster intake, faster cross-referencing against the kind of record systems we've talked about on this channel before, and lower operational costs for the government. Here's the part that should genuinely concern anyone who isn't comfortable navigating an online system, or simply doesn't have reliable internet access. Once a specific form gets flagged for mandatory e-filing, mailing in a paper version after that deadline risks outright rejection. Not a request for more evidence. Not a delay. A rejection, treated as if the form was never filed at all, the same serious consequence we've discussed with other USCIS policy shifts this year. Imagine spending weeks gathering documents, getting a form notarized, mailing it in on the exact date you always would have, only to have it bounced back because that specific form quietly crossed into mandatory e-filing territory while you weren't checking the website. There is a safety valve, and it's worth knowing it exists. If you genuinely cannot file electronically, DHS has built in a hardship waiver process specifically for this rule. It's not automatic, and it's granted at USCIS's discretion, but it exists precisely for people who can't reasonably comply with an online-only requirement, limited internet access, disability, age, whatever the genuine barrier happens to be. If that's your situation, this waiver is worth understanding well before you ever need to actually use it. Let's talk about who this actually touches, because the honest answer is almost everyone eventually. This rule applies to a wide range of benefit requests, adjustment of status, work authorization, family petitions, employment-based visas. If you interact with USCIS at all, some form in your future filing plans is likely to end up on this list eventually. It's simply a matter of when, not if. Here's something else worth knowing, because it's a genuine opportunity most people miss. DHS is actively accepting public comments on this rule through October 13, 2026. That window matters more than it sounds. If you have real specific concerns, limited internet access in a rural area, a disability that makes online forms difficult, a language barrier that makes navigating a government website genuinely hard, this is one of the only moments where that concern becomes part of the official government record, considered before this framework gets locked in permanently. So, what should you actually do with this information right now? Start checking USCIS's website regularly for the specific 60-day notices as they get published, because that notice is your entire warning window before a form you might need becomes online. Only. If you're someone who's always filed on paper out of habit or comfort, this is genuinely the moment to get familiar with your USCIS online account now, before a filing deadline forces you to learn it under pressure. Set one up, explore how document uploads work, understand what completing the form online versus uploading a PDF with evidence actually looks like in practice, because both options exist under this rule. And if you know you'll struggle with electronic filing when your form's turn comes, start researching the hardship waiver process now, not after you've already missed a 60-day window you didn't know was ticking. Here's the bigger picture worth sitting with. This isn't a dramatic overnight policy shock the way some of the other changes we've covered have been. It's quieter than that, and in some ways, that makes it easy to miss entirely, right up until the exact form you need is the one that got switched over while you weren't watching. A system built for decades around paper and mailboxes is being methodically converted, form by form, into one built around online accounts and digital uploads, and the people who adapt early are going to move through that transition a lot more smoothly than the people who find out about it from a rejection notice sitting in their mailbox instead of an approval. Before you go, make sure you've hit subscribe and turned on notifications, because we're going to keep tracking exactly which forms USCIS moves to mandatory e-filing as those 60-day notices start rolling out. If this video helped you understand a change that's genuinely easy to miss, share it with someone who still files on paper, because the best time to get comfortable with this system is before you're forced to, not after. Thanks so much for watching. Stay informed, stay prepared, and take care.